I sat dazed on the edge of my bed, my body utterly shattered after a long day of battling through work. It was that precise moment when discipline is most vulnerable to defeat. My head was throbbing, my feet were numb, and every fiber of muscle seemed to be screaming for rest. A fierce internal battle raged within my mind. Should I drag myself to the gym as planned, or simply give in? The allure of a plush sofa, a delicious meal, and an early night's sleep was a sweet, irresistible temptation. I had nearly decided to surrender, convincing myself that I deserved to rest, to recharge for tomorrow. Just as my will was wobbling most violently, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a friend inviting me to hang out with the crew. Perfect! In my mind, this wasn't just an invitation, it was a sign from the universe saying, "Come on, just relax, you're allowed to be lazy today." And just like that, I quickly swapped my gym gear for a comfortable pair of jeans and drove off, leaving all intentions of self-improvement in the rearview mirror. I stepped into a house filled with laughter and chatter. Everyone was incredibly friendly, but fate had arranged for me to spend the majority of that evening talking to a man named Thomas. Thomas exuded a distinct aura. He was intelligent, his eyes sparkling with wit, and he was full of bold ideas about life. But what made Thomas's presence truly haunt my thoughts wasn't his intellect. It was the wheelchair he was confined to. We quickly found common ground when I mentioned that I used to play basketball in high school. The topic of sports acted like a key, unlocking Thomas's glorious past. He excitedly recounted that he used to be a stellar football player and had a burning passion for powerlifting. Thomas had even harbored ambitions of becoming a professional athlete, using his raw strength to conquer the highest peaks of the sport. As the atmosphere grew more intimate, the conversation drifted toward the harsh reality. Why was such a strong, ambitious man bound to a wheelchair for life? Thomas recounted his life-altering event, and honestly, it was a tragedy that would silence any listener. It happened on a day just like any other. Thomas was driving through an intersection when the light turned green. He was following the law, staying in his lane, but life isn't always fair. Out of nowhere, another car ran a red light at horrifying speed and smashed directly into the driver's side of his car. The sickening sound of crunching metal, the blare of alarms, and after that terrifying moment, the legs that once supported his dreams had lost the ability to walk forever. As Thomas spoke about his old training days, I saw a burning yearning in his eyes, a deep nostalgia for the sensation of sweat, the feeling of muscles tightening under load, and the freedom of movement. Yet the most remarkable thing about Thomas wasn't the tragedy he suffered, it was his attitude toward it. He didn't exude gloom, despair, or resentment toward fate as I often see in victims of major trauma. Thomas shared something that stunned me. That accident taught him a lesson in gratitude. Instead of drowning in the sorrow of what was lost, he began to deeply cherish what remained. He realized that he had previously taken simple things for granted, like the ability to stand up, walk, or run, things that had now become luxurious dreams. He spoke of how lucky he was to have supportive friends and a loving family. Above all, he was grateful that the horrific crash hadn't robbed him of his intellect or caused brain damage, a common outcome in such severe impacts. While I, a fully able-bodied person, was fishing for excuses to avoid exercise, sitting before me was a man who would willingly trade his entire fortune, sell every fleeting material possession he owned, just to exchange it for one single hour of enduring the muscle soreness and exhaustion that I was trying to escape. Thomas craved the burden I was rejecting. To him, the fatigue after a workout wasn't suffering, it was proof of life. Evidence of a body functioning in its entirety. The clock struck 10 p.m. I said goodbye to everyone and headed out. The silence inside my car on the drive home turned into an interrogation chamber for my conscience. Thomas's words kept echoing in my head, gnawing at the weak ego I had pampered all day. I began to review the reasonable excuses I had concocted to skip the gym. I'm too tired, my head hurts a bit, I need to relax. Placing those flimsy reasons on a scale against Thomas's desperate longing, I felt ashamed to my core. I had just spent the evening with a man who I am certain would willingly trade his entire fortune, sell every fleeting material possession he owned, just to exchange it for one single hour of enduring the muscle soreness and exhaustion that I was trying to escape. Thomas craved the burden I was rejecting. To him, the fatigue after a workout wasn't suffering, it was proof of life, evidence of a body functioning in its entirety. When I got home, instead of going straight to bed, curiosity and a sense of guilt drove me to my computer. I started searching for real data, and the results on the screen left me stunned. It turns out we're living in a bubble of luck without even realizing it. About 10% of the world's population lives with some form of disability. That equates to 650 million people. Just imagine there are 650 million people on this planet who, every morning they wake up, yearn for the basic capabilities that you and I possess for free. They dream of walking normally, seeing the light, or simply grasping an object on their own. Meanwhile, we, the lucky winners of the genetic lottery with fully functional limbs and health, are over here complaining that we can't go to the gym because we're a little tired, a little busy, or a little stressed. The stark truth doesn't stop there. Even the fact that you're watching this video or reading these words is a luxury privilege, not because my content is amazing, but because you have access to the internet. According to the United Nations, more than 4 billion people on Earth still do not have access to the internet. That is over half of humanity. For them, touching a smartphone, using a computer, or accessing the infinite treasure trove of human knowledge is a distant fantasy. They would sacrifice so much just for the opportunity to learn and connect the way we do so casually every day. We often paint grand visions. One day we'll have six-pack abs, become millionaires, travel the world with our soulmates, and live a brilliant life. But the brutal reality is, most of us will never touch that dream. Why? Not because we lack ability, but because we lack discipline. We deceive ourselves with sweet lies. I don't have time, I don't have the conditions, I lack resources. So how do we break this cycle? How do we build a discipline of steel, sharp as a razor, to turn dreams into reality? If you followed Thomas's story closely, you might have guessed my second secret. It is far more important than any time management hack. That secret is the power of gratitude and a shift in perspective. True discipline is not born from force or asceticism. It is born from the deep realization that to struggle is a privilege. To have a healthy body capable of training to the point of soreness is luck. To have a sharp mind and tools to build a business, to work late nights, is a privilege. When I truly internalized this idea, laziness no longer had a foothold. I no longer have to go to the gym. I get to go to the gym. I no longer have to work hard. I get the opportunity to contribute. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying you're a bad person if you skip a workout, or that you're lazy and useless if you haven't started a successful business yet. It is your life, and no one has the right to judge how you live it. But for me personally, whenever I want to give up, I take a step back and look at the big picture. I think of Thomas. I think of the 650 million people with disabilities. I think of the 4 billion people lacking opportunities. When I realize I'm standing on a peak of privilege that billions dream of, all my excuses vanish like mist. The only thing left in me at that moment is not fatigue, but pure gratitude transformed into fierce action. That is discipline, and that is exactly how I and you can change our lives.